The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is confronting the question, does post-traumatic stress increase a vet's risk of death by suicide? There's considerable debate among researchers. Some studies suggest the risk is higher among those who experience trauma due to PTS symptoms. Others claim the risk is higher in these individuals because of psychiatric conditions. I recently spoke with retired General Peter Corelli, former Vice Chief of Staff for the Army, and the point man on the Army's efforts to bring down its suicide rate. He's now the CEO of One Mind. It's a nonprofit focused on traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress. It's nice to have you. Thanks for talking with me.
Great to be here.
Why are the numbers around suicide so high for women veterans?
Well, if I knew that, I promise I'd tell you, but a lot of it is a mystery for me. I mean, there are some issues that I'm sure women have when they come back home. They don't have a support system necessarily the same that men do. I don't think the same camaraderie exists that it does in the male ranks, so the support system isn't there.
I've had women veterans, ones who've struggled with mental health issues, talk a lot about the feeling of being left out. Even when people are talking about service, they almost will tell stories about being particularly excluded from, you know, people looking back and talking about like you were part of it.
Yeah, I think that's a real issue. I mean, women in combat is a relatively new phenomena for the United States. Yet we could not have fought the wars we fought in Afghanistan and Iraq without women. They make up 16 to 17% of our force, and they're absolutely critical. But the same support systems that have built up over time for men are just not there for women. You've
been studying these issues for years. Your last 4 years in service in the military was focused on this. What's the problem? Why don't we have real solutions?
I think the problem is that the research ecosystem is not set up to find solutions to really, really difficult problems. We need to be sharing data, and researchers need to be working together in large multi-center studies. I don't believe any university, no matter how good it is going to be able to mass the number of research scientists it's going to take to get at some of these really difficult problems. And we've got to share data. We've got to share data between studies. Too often we repeat studies. We even repeat failed studies because no one wants to publish the study or a paper that says I was wrong.
So there were people who had predicted one day you'd be able to do a blood test and figure out if someone, in fact, has post-traumatic stress. For example, now it's basically a list of 21 questions. There's no sort of real definitive test to say you have it, you don't.
I think that's so important that you point that out. We tend to think about diagnosis as go to the doctor, he takes a picture, he takes blood. You know, there is some physical way that he can biologically tell and makes the diagnosis of the disease you have.
Like the way they diagnose cancer.
That's right. That's not the case when it comes to post-traumatic stress. It's not the case when it comes to traumatic brain injury. We use cognitive tests. We use a psychiatric manual and 21 questions to make a determination on whether or not someone has post-traumatic stress or not.
Do you think there will be, at some point, medication specifically created to help people who have post-traumatic stress?
I think if we work together, we can find biological markers. I think we could find blood tests. I think all those things are possible. We are very close in traumatic brain injury to, I think, finding a blood biomarker that appears in the blood after a concussion. I think we're very close to having imaging biomarkers that are going to allow us to tell what portion of the brain is affected when somebody suffers head trauma. I think all these things are possible, but again, I have to stress, we're going to have to get scientists to work together.
Are you finding that people are more open to conversations around concussion linked to PTS, cognitive problems linked to suicide?
I think they are. I think people have come to realize that even in the civilian population, when somebody goes into an emergency room with traumatic brain injury, 30% of them also have post-traumatic stress. We see what we call comorbidity, that these two problems exist together in a lot of folks. It's a much higher comorbidity in soldiers. We see upwards of 60% of soldiers that suffer traumatic brain injury also suffer post-traumatic stress. And I think we're starting to see some linkages between the two.
Feeling hopeful or not hopeful?
I'm hopeful. I really feel that the researchers that we're working with at One Mind have made tremendous inroads. And before too long, we're going to have the first biological diagnostics for traumatic brain injury. And I think that could open up the science.
Retired General Pete Corelli, thanks for talking with me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.